Hey, welcome to Wine Club. This is a playlist where I drink good wine while I whine about a bad book. And today I am drinking an excellent Barbera while talking about The Woman in the Dark by Vanessa Savage. Why am I wearing this outfit? Well, this is my Sidney Prescott costume, and my god, did I hope most of the characters in this book would be dead by the end of it, much like the movie that I'm modeling this after. We'll see if that panned out for me. Now, I do want to give a warning that there are going to be spoilers in this review, and as I say in all my reviews, this review is solely about the book and not about the author as a person. I'm sure she is absolutely lovely. I do also want to give a content warning that this book deals with gaslighting, DV, and SA. If those are triggers for you, please do not read this and feel free to back out of this review. Let's go ahead and see what this promised. What she can't see can hurt her. For Sarah and Patrick, family life has always been easy, until her mother's death sends Sarah spiraling into depression. When she overdoses on sleeping pills, Sarah insists it was an accident. But neither Patrick nor their teenage children believe her. Determined to give their family a fresh start, Patrick convinces her to move back to the idyllic beachside home where he grew up. But there is a catch. The once beautiful old house is now known as the murder house. It has been standing empty for 15 years, ever since another family was brutally slaughtered within its walls. Nostalgic for his childhood, Patrick is adamant that this can be their dream home, yet again. Sarah tries to bring it back to its original warmth, but as locals hint that the house is haunted, the children begin having nightmares. Strange writing appears on the walls, and creepy gifts suddenly start arriving on the doorstep at odd hours. With news that the murderer has been paroled, Sarah can't shake the feeling that something just isn't right. Not with the house, not with the town, not even with her own loving husband, whose stories about his perfect childhood suddenly aren't adding up. Can Sarah uncover the secrets of the murder house before another family is destroyed? With an irresistible fog-drenched atmosphere that hides its knife-sharp twists, Vanessa Savage's The Woman in the Dark is the perfect new read for fans of I Let You Go and The Couple Next Door, a chilling psychological thriller about dark family dysfunction and the secrets that haunt us. So, like I said in my reading room review of this, it is a good thing her last name is Savage. Because I'm about to be savage. I should have DNF'd this, but for some reason I hate myself and I kept skimming. Ooh, if you can't tell, I did not like this. This had all the right elements, but holy hell did this not work. I went into this wanting a spooky story about a creepy house. I wanted The Shining or Amityville. What this is really is DV, gaslighting, and emotional abuse with a bad house that has seemingly like supernatural things happening in it, but they're also not, and it is never explained what is really going on. There are cold spots in the house, and writing on the wall that's painted over that keeps getting uncovered. Do we ever get an explanation how these things are happening? No, so don't expect one. And really, the worst part of this, the biggest issues with this book are how awful the characters are. Again, I was hoping they'd all be covered with blood by the end of this. Sarah's husband, Patrick, is truly deranged, but he was also capable of hiding this side of himself for like decades, which felt really odd to me. But truly, he sucks. He is the worst. Every time he was on page, I just wanted to punch him in the throat and kick him in the peen at the same time. Their daughter is also horrible. I seriously kept waiting for a killer clown to pop out of the basement and just stab her already. I think, honestly, her son is probably the only person that I was hoping to get out of this because he's the only decent one in the bunch. These are truly awful characters. But Sarah is kind of the worst of them just because she is so passive that it's almost beyond belief. I just wanted to scream at her. And I hate feeling that way because it feels like borderline victim blaming. But my God, reading her like realizing that her husband is just horrible, but she keeps going home and making excuses for him all the time. Girl, come on. Like, multiple characters will sit there and point out how Patrick is lying to her and how worried they are. They're offering her help and resources, but nope, these people just don't understand. Don't they know people have died in her house? There are bigger issues here. Bruh, for real. Like, every time someone is about to reveal something to Sarah, she just basically like slaps her hands over her ears or tells them to stop talking, but then wants to know what they were going to say. Like, it felt like this TV show where a character would say something dramatic and that's just the end of the scene. Like, we know they still had to be together, like, to like go their separate ways. So what was that like after the goodbye? So let's actually talk about the plot properly, shall we? So when we start the book, Sarah is struggling. She's just come out of a deep depression after losing her mom and decides to steal some sleeping pills from her husband so she can get some rest. And all of a sudden she's being woken up and Patrick is screaming at her and like smacking her around a little bit. He's calling EMTs because she has overdosed. Even though like she's pretty confident that she didn't because she only took 2 pills, she just wanted to sleep. But yet when she wakes up, there are just pills scattered all around her. Maybe she did overdose. But at the same time, she's adamant that this was not an attempt to take her own life. But of course, her family doesn't believe her. And her daughter, oh my God, I seriously wanted to slap this daughter. The daughter is an absolute bitch to her mom, who she thinks is suicidal. This daughter is constantly blaming her mom, screaming at her, and telling her what a waste of space she is, how useless she is, what a loser she is. I mean, my God, if Sarah wasn't suicidal before, having this gremlin for a child certainly would make her be now. So Sarah is confused and sad, and her husband thinks that, hey, maybe now is the perfect time for them to move back into his childhood home that's randomly for sale. This home that he said was absolutely perfect and that he has such great memories from. He had the perfect childhood there and loved this house. And just don't worry that maybe like another family was murdered there after he moved out. The blood's been cleaned up. What's wrong with the place? So Sarah does not want to move and knows that they can't afford it. It is a very big house by the sea. But Patrick, oh, that wily coyote, he's got a solution. Sarah inherited about 20 grand from her mom, and, she might as well just give that to him so he can buy the murder house. Sarah wanted to use that money to travel and honor her mother's life, but no, Patrick is a 4-year-old and throws a temper tantrum that, Sarah has done nothing for him. He has given her everything. Why is she being so selfish? God, Sarah, just give me the $20,000. And like I said, Sarah is super passive, so of course she relents and they buy the house. He has grand plans to fix it up, but then he screams at her when she goes out to like buy some paint because they can't afford it. What was she thinking? Doesn't she know that they have absolutely no money? She can't buy supplies, but she, better be spending her days making this house amazing. Oh, and by the way, did he happen to mention that, the killer that earned the house the nickname of Murder House is out on parole now? Oh, he didn't? Well, he only didn't say anything because then Sarah wouldn't want to live here. My God. Again, Sarah is just so meek and passive that it is extremely frustrating. So Sarah and Patrick have 2 children, Joe and Mia, but we also find out that Joe isn't her biological son. Patrick had him before they got together, but he kind of like manipulated Sarah when she was 19 to basically become his babysitter and then his mother, and he basically used Joe to lock Sarah down as a permanent babysitter. But good for them because Sarah loves Joe. She sees him as her son. She knows that if she were to ever leave Patrick, she doesn't have a legal claim to Joe. It works, but it also kind of doesn't for the story because he's like 17, so in a year, he doesn't really matter who his parents are because he'll be legally free. I mean, I guess on the one hand, there is a reason for her to stay so the story can happen, but it just felt very forced. Like, either make him like 13 or something, or don't even bring this up. So they move into the murder house, and this house is creepy and unsettling. There's the aforementioned cold spots, the writing on the wall that's visible no matter how many coats of paint they cover it with. Are these things explained? Nope. They're just there to make it seem like the house is haunted or like the house is evil. As Sarah says, it is the house that is making Patrick be this weird and become kind of evil. His gaslighting continues to ramp up, and again, he is just such an awful character. I wanted to reach into the book and just like stab him or strangle him. Like, there's a scene where he makes her go to dinner with some coworkers and orders her calamari, which she does not even like. She gets sick when she eats it. That's how much she hates this. But he forces her to eat this in front of his coworkers. Which, if I was Sarah, I would have sat at that restaurant and put an order in for something else. This asshole can pay for 2 entrees for me. Around the same time, Sarah is getting to meet the neighbors, but recognizes that a lot of them are just kind of being nosy and want to peek inside the murder house. But Sarah does become friendly with one woman, Anna, and I immediately clocked that Anna was our stalker point of view. So we'll get some little chapters from like an outsider who is watching the family move into the house. We're probably supposed to think that it's the murderer, but it's Anna, who is later revealed to be Joe's bio mom, and her real name is Eve. See, Patrick had told Sarah that Joe's mom was an addict, and so he was the one to take custody of their son, and then she tragically died from an overdose. I mean, there seems to be a lot of overdoses happening around Patrick. You think maybe the police would investigate that a little bit more. So Sarah thought that Joe's mom was gone. She was the only mother that he knew. And Joe does not know that Sarah is not his biological mom. She keeps wanting to tell him the truth, but Patrick will not let her. And again, since she is not his legal mother, she feels like she has to defer to Joe. So as they're living in this house, Patrick begins acting more and more deranged and is missing work and generally just becoming the worst man to ever live. He's taking his anger out on Sarah and yelling at her all the time. It's her fault that he is such a loser. It's her fault that he can't sleep and obsessively wants to paint the basement. He even starts screaming at Joe and Mia and even goes so far as to attack Joe at one point. Sarah keeps internalizing the blame and, again, agreeing with him that it must all be her fault. We do find out at one point that Mia was being paid by Patrick to watch Sarah and report back to him what she's doing. Patrick ends up giving Mia Sarah's mother's jewelry to pawn, and honestly, that scene broke my heart when Sarah realizes that her mother's stuff and like her jewelry is missing. That is the last thing that she has to tie herself to her mother, and her piece of trash daughter just went and pawned it. How close are these people that they don't know whose stuff is whose? Because like growing up, my mom had a jewelry box, and like, yeah, I would go look through it occasionally, but I knew, like, this was not for me to play with, this was not for me to try on. I just wanted to look at it because I knew it belonged to my grandmothers and great-grandmothers. So the fact that her daughter feels completely comfortable being like, great, Dad, thanks for the jewelry, I'm gonna go pawn it, even though I know it's Mom's. I'm telling you, piece of trash. Trash family. So we'll go back to the stalker point of view for a second. So Anna has been the one leaving, like, little gifts and things at the house, and she's been doing it to mentally torture Patrick, as she thinks that their son died. She does not realize that Joe is hers. So it finally comes to a head when Anna realizes how old Joe actually is, and finally puts the pieces together that Joe is her son. She confronts Sarah, and how dare she steal another woman's baby? Anna, Eve, whatever your name is, please direct your anger at the right person. Patrick is the one who lied to you. Patrick is the one who made you mourn the loss of your son. And yet you are going to be pissed off at Sarah for loving Joe like her own? Please direct your anger at the right person here. It's around this time we also find out that Patrick did not have an ideal childhood in this house, and he was actually abused by his parents and often locked in the basement. But he somehow twisted this to fit his motivation that this house can be perfect. He can be perfect. He is going to have the perfect family. Now, on the surface, it's a fine motivation, but it really does start to crack when you look closer because it makes no sense from what we actually know of Patrick and his characterization throughout the book. So then we continue going off the rails here because the house is definitely not haunted. Again, explanations? Nope. We also find out that, Patrick had a hand in the murder that happened and basically told the husband of the family that died that the guy's wife was cheating, and so the husband snapped and basically killed the entire family. The guy who's in prison was the wife's lover and took the fall for the murders. So in the end, Anna ends up sacrificing herself to take out Patrick so that her son can live a good life with Sarah and Mia. Then Sarah ends up having the house bulldozed to the ground. The end. Now, I will say, this is a scary story, but it's scary because of all the gaslighting and DV in this. To borrow from a reviewer named Janelle on Goodreads, this book is 95% domestic abuse, 4% who is leaving things on the doorstep, and 1% ghost story. Because it's not even ghosts. This was kind of like that book I read, The Truth Hurts, where supernatural things are happening, but then they're just never explained. How? Why? How are these things happening? Like, if you're going to go the route of it's not actually supernatural, then give me an explanation for it, please. Like, at the end of the day, I cannot recommend this. Especially since there is a horrible inclusion of essay in this that felt like it was just there for the shock value. It's there, it's never properly addressed, it just happens, and I honestly couldn't believe what I was reading. Like, we already understood that Patrick was an awful person, so it just added nothing, and it meant nothing from a bigger narrative standpoint. It's there, but it doesn't do anything. Like, at least if you're going to throw that in, have it do something. Have the character, like, not necessarily grow from it, but have it at least impact them and the plot. I cannot give this more than 1 star. I'm sorry, but this was really hard to get through. It's not what I expected. It's so slow. And then it just tries to cram so many themes and important moments in at the end that it completely falls flat. It's too little too late at that point. It almost feels like the marketing team knew that properly marketing this book wouldn't get as big of a readership, so they were like, let's lean into the supernatural elements and hint that the house might be haunted just to lure people into reading this book, instead of just properly marketing this book as what it is. I feel very misled by this, and I'm really mad about it. I, again, cannot recommend this. I did not enjoy this. So if you have any book recommendations for stories about haunted houses that are actually haunted and scary, please share them in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for joining me at Wine Club.